questions. We have tons of them. What if some of those questions can be answered with a simple email? Now is that time, and welcome to Chat with Charlie. Host Stephanie Lynn is a certified spiritual life coach and psychic medium. She will work together with Spirit to answer both your submitted and live questions. Not only will Stephanie be providing you with insight, but also interviews with amazing guests. Now, your host of Chat with Charlie, Stephanie Lynn.
I've been doing this all morning, guys, muting myself. So let's try that again. Good morning. Welcome to Chat with Charlie. I am your host, Stephanie Lynn, and you're listening on WLTK-DB Let's Talk Radio. I am really excited to have everybody tuning in. You know, the reason way back when, if you've been with me for a while, for coming out, starting this podcast, was to offer a resource. And when we look at offering resources, you know, for me, it's creating that safe space. It was creating an environment where I was able to be myself, where I was able to help you all be yourself, and what that looks like to you. But what does that look like to everybody, right? We all deserve a safe space to have conversations. And really, that's what bringing in today's guest. Good morning, Salone. Thank you for tuning in. Bringing in today's guest is about. Today, we're going to be focusing on mental health, which you guys, you know, I am huge on mental health, ending that stigma around those things, and, you know, substance abuse. In today's society, so many of us self-medicate to try to get through because of the stigma around mental health, because of the stigma of just getting help. We see that as a vulnerability. We're really, and I think this is important to our guest, it's about changing the narrative, right? It's about changing the conversation and being able to start that conversation. And that's what we're doing today. So I'd like you to help me welcome our guest, Jeff Johnston. He is an author and founder of the Living Undeterred Project.
Hey, Stephanie, how you doing?
Hi, good morning. How are you?
I'm really excited. Like I said earlier, I'm kind of battling a little bit of a head cold, but since we're on a Zoom meeting, you're safe.
Right.
But if I have to jump off and hit mute or something, that's because I have to cough. But other
I
than that, I'm doing coffee's kicking in. I'm doing pretty good.
Right. Yeah, I'm about 4 cups in. I think
Jeez.
I overdid the coffee today.
I'm only on my first one, so.
Well, that's good. That's good. So before we kind of get into, there's so many topics that I really want to touch base with you for the viewers today. But, and I know, you know, sometimes these are sensitive topics of what started our journey into wanting to inspire. Good morning, Jackie. Thank you for tuning in. What started that journey of us kind of working through the pain, working through our, good morning, Danny, our life, what I call tragedies, and using that to inspire. So could you tell us a little bit about your background before you really started focusing on helping people with mental health and substance abuse?
Yeah. I'll go back as far as, say, age 50. Okay. That was I'm actually, today's my birthday. So
happy birthday.
I'm 57 today, which is crazy.
Great age.
Yeah. I'm really enjoying being 57. It's been a few hours already. But no, so at age 50, I'd reached this peak of my life in a way, professionally. I'd set off at age 23 to be a financial advisor. By age 50, you know, I was married, my lovely wife, Prudence, 3 boys, Seth, Ian, and Roman. And I was managing an investment firm with 9 full-time employees and 7 staff. Okay. So the perception from the public was, hey, this guy's got his stuff together. You know, he's doing really well. But what they didn't know was I was in a lot of pain. I was an alcoholic for probably 30 years, 5-6 days a week. What's called a functional alcoholic. Yep. And then from there, I was a compulsive gambler for a couple decades. I can honestly say I never took money from clients, but I did lose a lot of money that I worked hard for. And I could have done good things with it. But what all changed for me was October 4th, 2016. And that's a day that's, you know, I became a member of a club I didn't ask to join, and one I certainly can't leave. And that day was like every other day, in Iowa, beautiful corn, just, I don't know. I was getting ready to take my kid to play golf for districts, and my middle son, Ian. And like I said, I was patting myself on the back. I achieved everything I wanted.
Right.
And what life does is humbles you, sometimes
Yes.
subtly, sometimes very intense. But I got a call at 6:30 in the morning, and I knew when I looked at the phone that there was something horrific on the other line. And
Right.
they had found our oldest son, Seth, dead from a fentanyl overdose, poisoning, less than a mile from where his little brother was going to go golf that day for districts.
Yeah.
And so my life changed, and death came into my life as an opportunity to be a better man, not a bitter man. Now,
Right.
I say that confidently now, but at the time, I was a train wreck.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Seth had started with a journey that started at 15 years old with Strattera for attention deficit,
Okay.
and went to Adderall. And then from Adderall at 16, it went from alcohol, marijuana,
Yeah.
breaking and entering, drunk driving, cocaine, jail, prison, heroin, fentanyl, all and in death, all within 6 years. So
Wow.
I watched all that happen,
Right.
under my watch.
Yeah.
It when you go through something like that, and I maybe there are people on here that have lost a child, maybe there are people that are in the grips of losing one.
Yeah.
You can't put it into words, you can't articulate it.
No.
And I made this presentation to the boys the day Seth died. They were 15 and 13. And
Wow.
those are impressionable ages.
Absolutely.
And I said, boys, and this is what I said the day that they died when they got home, and I told them that their brother had died. I said, and my wife was over to my right, and my two boys were over here to the left. And I said, we have one of two roads to go down. We have a road of anger, despair, and hatred. We'll become
Right.
alcoholics and addicts ourselves. Or we have a road of inspiration and motivation. And this can be the single greatest moment in our lives and those around us to make a difference. I'm on the second road. I ask you to join me. And that's what I said. And
wow, that's powerful though. Because in that moment, and I know as a parent, and I know friends who have lost their children to substance abuse, and to have that insightfulness within that moment to me is just so beautiful, but inspiring. To me, it's like that. I don't want to label it that spiritual intervention, but just to have that awakening in that moment, in that grief.
And I don't know where it came from. And so I said that to them, and my boys did. My two boys have been amazing. They're 22 now and 19, and they're awesome. But the problem is I took the bitter road. So as I told them to take the better road, I got distracted. So I called my company up and I said, I need a year off. I need to get my stuff together.
Right.
My wife was in a really bad place. We were both alcoholics up to this point.
Right.
And for 14 months, I sat home and got drunk every day, and phoned every negative person I could in my head and said, hey, come on over. I got a big pity party going on. Let's get drunk.
Right.
And I did that for 14 months.
Yeah.
And I saw my wife really getting worse. And I finally decided on December 24th, 2017 to quit.
Yeah.
I just quit. I mean, I'm a pragmatic person. I'm not that smart, so I don't overthink things too much.
Right.
I just decided that alcohol was something I didn't want to contribute to anymore. So I quit, and I've never been to a meeting. I've not drank for 5 years, and it's been the easiest thing I've ever done in my life. I don't consider myself sober because that implies I'm in some fight. I don't fight anything.
Right.
I just don't drink. It's that's simple.
I think that's a great perspective because, and this is a little off to the side of topic, but a lot of people struggle. They go to the meetings,
right,
and they struggle within that world. But I think that's that biggest step. We can force our kids to go and sit down, but until it clicks within yourself,
right,
that's, to me, a big pivotal point of I don't want this, or this has to change.
Yeah, I had that epiphany moment where I knew I had to make a change, and I was 52 at the time.
Yeah.
And my wife was really doing bad, and I wanted to save the marriage. I wanted to save her life and all that stuff, and so I quit. But the problem was that it didn't help. It didn't help her any. And on June 29th, 2021, a day after my youngest son's 19th or 18th birthday, Prudence died. from alcoholism.
Yeah.
Age of 46, we're married 21 years, 3
Wow.
boys, it's just,
Yeah.
but again, death came into my life as
Right.
an opportunity to be a better man, not a bitter man.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
my story isn't tragic. I don't
Right.
know how else I can tell people this. I appreciate the sympathy or
Right.
I'm sorry, I hate sympathy, the empathy.
Yes.
I don't want sympathy or pity. That ship has sailed.
Yeah.
Empathy, love, courage, compassion. I'm all for that. But, death to me just said again, hey, you know what? You got to realize you got to live in the moment. You got people still here. You got to
Right.
honor the dead, but live for the living type mindset. So, I don't allow people to use the word tragic around my situation because tragedy is a baby drowning in a pool. Tragedy is your parents getting hit by a drunk driver. Tragedy is a plane crash. Tragedy from overdose, poisoning, and alcoholism, that's preventable and predictable.
Yeah. I
It's
like
unfortunate.
that.
It's
Yes,
unfortunate. It sucks.
absolutely.
It stinks,
Absolutely.
but it's certainly not a tragedy.
No, and I like that because you're absolutely right in and I've talked to, people who are dealing with this themselves because, people will get in this place of taking on or embodying the choices that the other people have
Yeah,
made.
right.
And you can support people and like you said you were trying to help your wife and you can help people, but we ultimately cannot change other people's choices.
No, you can't.
Yeah,
You can't. And so for me, this has been a massive spiritual journey. And
absolutely.
I will say this to your followers and listeners. Um, I'm agnostic. So
Okay.
I mean, for the most part, I'm comfortable not knowing what happens when I die.
Right.
I've always
Right.
been that way. Atheists claims they know there isn't a God. I just claim I know I don't know.
Right.
That's all I
Right.
know. I mean, I've
Yeah.
never had a chariot come down from the heavens and show me
Right.
anything. I've never had that. And
Right.
I'm open for it.
Yeah.
But I'm at the same time, I know that this isn't just all random luck. And I know there's
Right.
something connected here with all of us. And I think when
Absolutely.
my spiritual experience and my spiritual journey now is more of unpacking the biases that I had over my lifetime,
Right.
what I thought I knew. And then at
Right.
57, starting to lean into all these other opportunities that are out there so I can have the best lived experience I possibly can and
Right.
keep learning and inspire people. I don't want people to hear my story and feel sorry for me
No.
because, I hear people's story that they tell me and most of the times I don't feel sorry for them.
Right.
It's you live long enough, you're going to have really bad things happen.
Absolutely.
It's just
Absolutely.
mathematically guaranteed. And you're a
Right.
fool. You're a fool to think you're going to live to be 57
And
and
not
not have
have,
something
yeah.
horrific happen.
Right.
And we live in this unrealistic expectation mindset where
Absolutely.
and kids are the worst. Kids right now are really bad because they just expect by 17 to be driving Lamborghinis and being
Oh, I know.
a million followers on TikTok. And it's just
Right.
not realistic. And so we got to temper that enthusiasm and figure out ways to get back to having a set of realistic expectations about life.
I love that. And for I love a lot of what you're saying, obviously, but for a lot of reasons. First, I like how, and that's why I wanted to start with your story, not to, again, like not to, like you said, have people feel bad for you,
Yeah.
but for people to look at you and say, man, he's had real life experiences. I feel like sometimes when people cannot connect to that human aspect of
Yeah.
people,
Right.
that they have trouble connecting, they have trouble trusting in finding that help or in using that resource. But I think it's and that's what I like, where you can be so raw about, this is what happened, but this is how we move forward with it, not letting that define you. And I liked how you brought up, because this is another thing, and where I want to talk about your projects. Youth today are so inundated
Yeah.
with, like you said, these unrealistic expectations, the social media. They constantly have propaganda, I guess,
Yeah. Yeah.
flashing in with how their life should look. And if it doesn't meet this criteria, which I feel is leading to seeing more self-medicating at much younger ages.
Yeah. I fully agree. And I think if you look at what I have learned from this 6-year journey I've been on, is that I don't have time for hate and anger, and
Right.
my whole heart is full of love. And so my projects are all designed towards hope and inspiration, not fear and scarcity, and
Right.
there's so much of that today in our world. And it'd be easy for me to be that angry dad that is going after the drug cartels and protesting the laws and locking up the drug dealers. And that's
Right.
that's all changing the narrative with hate. And sure,
Yes.
we need people to do that. I need what I call the supply side advocates, the people out
Right.
there cutting down the supply and making sure. Yeah, I get that, but I'm a lot more interested in the demand side of why we do what we do, and
Absolutely.
what's our motivations behind it, what's the intentions behind
Right.
it. And that's where I've kind of gravitated to. So my projects are really geared towards hope and inspiration, and they're really geared. My most recent one is our app we're launching this summer towards Gen Z mental health,
Yes.
which is huge. It's a big
So
issue.
let's talk a little bit about those, because I think that is another fantastic point to look at, is if we can educate, if we can end this stigma of, oh man, I made a mistake. We all make mistakes,
Right,
and we're in this stigma of everything has to be perfect. We can't make mistakes. We can't talk about these things that happened that
right.
maybe changed our perspective on why we tried something, or why maybe we're self-medicating. Where do you start with that with these kids? Because I do feel, educating, because if they're educated and they look at why they're choosing these things, if nobody is buying, the sellers eventually
Right.
don't have a business. And so if we can touch a little bit on how do you reach them, and your Living Undeterred project.
Yeah, well, I think one is just defining what a mistake is. I just
Right.
don't believe there are mistakes. I think
Right.
a mistake is only cemented as a mistake if you don't learn from it. So,
Correct.
if you're repeating and repeating the same thing, then that becomes a mistake. But,
Right.
if you do drugs for one time or two times or five times or
Yeah.
whatever, it's really not a mistake. It's part of your story. And
Absolutely.
things like death too, it's like, um, it would be easy for me, and kind of what my wife fell into was reliving the past, the memories of Seth, just constantly, just
Right.
torturing herself. And I kept trying
Yeah.
to tell her there wasn't a whole lot of productivity in that. And so this idea of, hanging on to past experiences that are negative
Right.
can be very toxic, and can actually, well, in my wife's case, was her demise.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be that way. There's no book that says we have to grieve a certain way. There's
Correct.
no template that says X happens, so you have to do Y. I mean,
Right. Right.
you're always free to tell yourself a new story about your past. You're under no
Absolutely.
obligation to even believe what has happened in your past. That's how powerful our mind is, and we don't utilize
Yes.
enough of it. And so, death sucks. It does.
Mhm.
It's horrific, but it's going to come to all of us eventually.
Right.
So I'm teaching my boys now, and say, hey, I could die today when I'm working out on
Right.
my elliptical. I could have a heart attack at 57. It's not out of the
Right.
ordinary. How would you guys handle that?
Right.
I would want you guys to have it be a death, another opportunity come into your life as a way to
Right.
be better, not bitter. So
Yeah.
kind of mentally prepare yourself for the inevitability of pain and suffering that comes our way as humans. And we don't do that.
No, we don't.
We don't, and I think the problem, there's a lot of really tough challenges with Gen Z, but there's a lot of really good, encouraging things out there as well.
Right.
Um, but it's a way for us to try to give them a different perspective to look at what they have in front of them, because a lot of them feel like they have no meaning and purpose.
Absolutely. And I know, personally, just within my circle, I know I have very close friends dealing with struggling with their child, where it starts out as vaping, then it
Yeah,
starts out with, additives or putting pot in their vapes,
right.
and the depression, and trying, and this particular person just trying to get support for their child is next to impossible.
Hmm.
So where do you tell people to go, or how can you help people who are struggling like that, where they recognize a problem but they don't know how to get help or support for their child?
Well, one of the big things that we're trying to do with the Living Undeterred Project and the people that we're with, talk about reducing stigma, is trying to eliminate labels. And let me give you
Yes.
the best example. For me, is the easiest one to relate to because I have attention deficit. It may not be today because I'm kind of chill because I'm coming off a cold, but
Right.
normally I'm pretty intense. And I've been that way my whole life. And my dad
Yeah.
was a doctor, and my dad never gave me any pills. Back then it would have been Ritalin.
Yeah.
He just said, Jeff, it's a superpower. And,
I love it.
like a lot of superpowers, like Superman and Batman,
Right.
Occasionally they get in trouble.
Right.
And so your superpower, your attention deficit will get you
Mhm.
in trouble sometimes. So I grew up my whole life thinking sorry for the other kids that weren't like little Jeffy, that legs weren't going 100 miles an hour. And
Right.
I actually felt sorry for them. So, but we don't do that today.
No.
Here's what we do, Stephanie. Stephanie, you're anxious, you're nervous, well, first of all, you're human. That's what makes us freaking human.
Yes.
That anxiety separates us from the robots. So,
Yes.
I want anxiety. I love it.
Emotion.
Right? Yeah.
Oh
It's
no,
just
we're
stupid
having
that
emotion.
we're trying to quell all this. And it's like, so, so Stephanie, so let's go see a physician or a doctor or a psychiatrist because you're supposedly doing things that humans shouldn't do.
Right.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Yes.
And so the doctor looks at you and says, here, and take this pill and that'll stop it. So this idea that what you have is a disorder is a problem for me because even if it is, why the hell do the kids have to hear that it's a disorder? Why can't you and I just call it a disorder? You and I argue whether it's a big deal or not, but the kid sitting out there who's 13, why does he have to think he has attention deficit disorder? Why can't he just say, I have attention deficit and leave it at that?
Right. Well, I see a lot of that. I work within the public school system. I work with special ed and special needs students, and you see that a lot, where you'll be having people having a conversation and the students right there, and they're talking about their disability or their problem. Well, and you can just see these kids deflate.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I see Jackie made a comment down there too, but it's like, and I think attention deficit is the easiest one because we all have it. I mean, we all have it. It's just like, and the fact that we think it's a non-human quality for us is what's bizarre. To me, it's absolutely bizarre. We don't embrace it and say, little Johnny, that's great. You're excited. You're a big thinker. You can't draw inside the lines.
Right.
A lot of great people have done that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let's nurture those talents you have. Let's take the ones that get you in trouble. Let's try to tone those down. Figure out maybe medication is needed. I'm not a doctor. I don't know. But the fact, to me, when you
have to treat whole body.
Yeah, exactly. And when you put a label on a kid or an adult, that label quite often becomes a box, and many times the box becomes a coffin.
Yes.
And I just go back and look at where our whole thing started, and it really started at the time when he was given Adderall. I'm not going to skirt around the issue.
Yeah.
So am I an anti-Adderall advocate? No, of course not. That's reactionary. That's not the way I want to do it.
Right.
Is Adderall an important part of that process? Probably. Is it the first place to go to? Absolutely not.
Right.
That's my problem.
Right.
That was the first place the doctors went with Seth.
Yeah.
They didn't go to meditation. They didn't go to exercise. They didn't take sugar out of his diet. They didn't.
Right.
They just said, take a freaking pill.
No.
And there's a reason why our country has an Adderall shortage.
Well, and I like that because I like the importance, I guess, in highlighting the need for whole body treatment.
Yeah.
And, because there are times medication, it's appropriate, but are you trying, like you said, are you trying these other things? And I know even in my own household, when we lost my father-in-law, it took my husband into a very dark place within himself. And eventually, we're able to turn that around, but he does meditate every day. He does these things to treat his whole self, to stay connected. And I think if some of these techniques were not so dismissed, when I go into the doctor and say, well, I meditate, and they scoff at you.
Yeah, right.
That's not a safe place anymore.
I agree. I meditate too. It's been a lifesaver for me. It's a whole chapter in my book.
Yeah.
And I had never meditated prior to Seth's death. So for me, I took it as just keep learning, just keep adding arrows to the quiver,
Absolutely.
So for someone who has an active mind, which again is probably most people, meditation's been a great way for me to be really aware of my thoughts, not judging them or trying to create them. But and this is where I think for grief and trauma, it's really helped me, is this idea of impermanence.
Yes.
when you know things don't last forever.
Yes.
And that's both the good times and the bad times. So when you're
Right.
you're at a point in your life where you're at a really good, you're having a good moment.
Right.
You're with someone you really care about. You witness something you make a smile, something your
Right.
child does in sports or something. And you realize these moments are very infrequent,
Yes.
and they're rare. But when they happen, they're so beautiful and it's so awe-inspiring. And you're like, wow, life is worth living. And then you
Yeah.
go back to shitty things that happen during your day. And you also
Absolutely.
got to say this, you can't be inconsistent and say, well, I understand impermanence on great things, but bad things last forever. No, they don't.
Right.
Bad things die
Right.
too. And
Yes.
so that idea of permanence goes both ways. You can't have it
Yes.
one or the other. So now I know my best moments I have each day die, and so do my worst. And so
Right. It's
I try
perspective.
to reframe it that way. That's like an old Stoic philosophy concept, is reframing. And
Yes.
so, here I am now at 57, and I can honestly say I'm probably the best place I've ever been in my life. And but I work hard at it. Again,
Right.
not drinking, meditating, eating healthy, exercise. I don't watch any
Right.
TV.
No, you have to put
I
in the effort,
yeah,
right? You're putting
yep.
in the effort.
But again, I'm not anything special. I'm just a dad from
Right.
Iowa. Anybody listening, anybody watching, anyone following you can handle anything that life throws at us.
Yes.
And really, it's not like life throws things at us. When I do my talks around the country, I always end with this sentence, and I think it's the best question to ask yourself. And how you answer the question really frames and dictates the quality of the rest of your life. And here's the
Right.
question: do things happen to you, or do things happen for you?
Yeah. That's
It's
huge.
an easy question.
It is.
Did death happen to me, or death happen for me?
Right.
Well, I can't. I have to answer one or the other. Death has to happen for me. Has to be
Right.
for me. Can't be to me, because that's the bitter road. That's the victim road. That's
Right.
anger. That's hatred. So I don't want to be on that road. I hate that road. It sucks. It's not fun, and I don't enjoy it. So I want to be on the better road. That's the victor mindset. That's
Absolutely.
and we all can do it.
We can. And I think before we jump to the break, when you're looking at it from, like you said, being the victor, that doesn't mean, I think people look at it like you move completely out of the pain, or you move,
No,
you
100%.
don't.
Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no winning.
Right.
You evolve. You adapt.
Exactly.
I don't wake
Thank
up
you.
and go, I won. I beat death. It's like,
Right.
death's coming for me too. It's like, I can't
Right.
run from that.
No.
But I can certainly have the best lived experience I can possibly have. My time it's like trying to make heaven on earth right now,
Yes, absolutely.
And if the afterlife's there, then the afterlife's there, but it's not here for me right now. And
Right.
I'll do my best with the best intentions and the best, I don't know. I'm very hyper focused on trying to live in the moment. Matter of fact, that's my my tattoo.
Oh, wow.
Is the raindrop hitting the water, and it's got the initials of my son and some other things in here that all my boys are in my tattoo. But
Oh, neat.
that tattoo reminds me of just really slowing my breath down,
Right.
looking out the window, saying, nothing really exciting is happening, but that's okay.
Right. Right.
I
Being
mean,
present. Just
okay.
be present in that space.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm real present. I feel pretty fortunate. I'm full of gratitude. Do I have bad days? Oh man, every day. I have bad moments. I wouldn't say I have bad days. I've learned to keep them the lifespan short, but I have very bad moments, and I mean bad. I don't know how personal you want me to get, but
whatever you're comfortable with.
Christmas
I
after
understand.
my wife died, I had a gun to my head. I was ready to go. And you know what? I was at peace. I was even now when I reflect on it, that at that moment, I was okay dying.
Yeah.
I was okay.
Yeah.
I'm happy, very happy I didn't do it. And for anyone that had suicidal ideation, it's not worth it.
No.
All the things that's happened since I would have done that have been amazing.
Right.
And I would have robbed all those opportunities, and I would have robbed my kids the opportunity of having a dad.
Absolutely.
They've lost a brother, they've lost a mom. How in the hell can they survive losing a dad?
Absolutely. And I think that's a huge testament of the pain. I've been in a similar situation of just being in that pain in that moment, and being able to, move past it, however you moved yourself out of that scenario. But I like what you said, because where would your projects be? Where would the people that
I
you
wouldn't have any of
helped
this
be?
stuff.
Right.
Yep.
And so and I hate, because when you're looking at grief and you say, well, you have to look at the bigger picture, that's so hard.
Yeah.
But that ripple effect, right? That butterfly effect out.
Now, I'll say one thing before we go to break. This isn't about pain. That's the thing. This is
Right.
not about pain. This is
Right.
about suffering.
Right.
Big difference.
Yes. Yes.
Pain,
Good point. I love that.
pain
Yes.
is unavoidable.
Right.
I fall, I break my arm. That's painful, and everyone
Right.
has the same pain. The amount of suffering that I attach to that pain is what's key. That's what
Yes.
separates the people that can survive and thrive and those that just get by.
I love the
So,
vernacular. Yeah.
yeah, so pain to me is unavoidable. I don't try to avoid pain. I don't avoid
Right.
the hurt of Seth dying and the hurt of my wife dying. What I can control is my suffering.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's where I spend my time. I don't allow myself to be in a lot of suffering.
Yeah. Change the perspective, change the words. There's power in our words, and there's power, in how we look at those things. So when we come back, I would really love to talk about your book, love to talk about your projects, and let people who might be struggling know where they can find you as a resource. So we will see you all back in just a moment. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Chat with Charlie. It's about 31 past the hour. You are listening on WLTK-DB Let's Talk Radio. If you are just tuning in, I hope you will go back, hop on Podbean, download us, catch the first part of the show. We are talking with Jeff Johnston. He is an author. He is the owner and founder of the Living Undeterred Project. And he's also working on a new mental health project called Brightn, geared towards helping Gen Z. So how do people find you? How do people get help? How do people get inspired?
Yeah, so the Living Undeterred Project came about after Seth died as a nonprofit to raise money and awareness for kids with struggling with suicide or alcohol and drug abuse. And so from there, I decided to write a book because to me, it was really important that the memories that I did have in my mind, I wanted to capture those. And I wanted to make sure that as time went on, that my son's legacy was still there. And there's another special meaning behind all this. When Seth died at 23, 3 weeks later, his daughter was born.
Wow.
So I have a beautiful, beautiful little granddaughter.
What a gift.
She's 6. Yeah. And her name is Brightn.
Oh, I like that.
So when I pick her up, I see her quite a bit, and I pick her up and I say, hey, Brightn, you brighten my day. And I'll always say, where's your daddy? And she'll say, in my heart. And I say, he's in my heart too. And we'll talk, and I'll get the cologne. I have 2 bottles of Seth's cologne, and I'll say, which one do you want to smell like dad today? And so I'll smell her all up. She'll go to school, and everyone thinks she's smelling, like cologne. And I'm like, well, you don't know the whole story. That's her dad.
Yeah.
But we talk in the present tense with her dad, and I'm not accepting that he's dead. Now, I do want to say this is where it gets difficult for me. And I will segue a little bit from what maybe you asked me a question about, but
that's okay.
Attention deficit's great because we can go down any road we want.
Absolutely.
Again, being secular, being, an agnostic person, I've struggled with this whole idea of, where is Seth, and so I've kind of come to this, he's in my heart. That's how I'd answer the question. I'm open to the idea of him and Prudence being anywhere. And maybe I'll see him again, maybe I won't. It shouldn't limit my ability to, communicate with them in a way I want to communicate with them,
Absolutely.
I don't see dead people. I don't communicate with the afterlife, but it doesn't mean I can't can't feel them in my heart. I
Absolutely.
can't live an intentional life or a life full of intention,
Right.
with the ability to honor them the best way I
Mhm.
can. Now, I have had some really weird things happen. I told you we were before the show that my brother owns Cedar Rapids Paranormal,
Yes,
which is really cool. I'd love to have him come on your show and talk.
absolutely. I'd be
You guys have hit
honored.
it off great. He's an empath, and
Oh, I love
he
it.
he's amazing, absolutely amazing. And him and he was on my podcast. We talked about Bigfoot and UFOs and stuff. And where I'm going with this is, I am so interested in finding out more on things I don't have evidence for.
Right. Right.
And that is a trait I think is good for me. I'm open-minded.
Absolutely.
Right.
And
And I know my limitations, and I
right.
haven't had the experiences that some people claim they've had, and
Right.
I'm open to have them. So I give myself an open mind. I'm always, I meditate, my mind's wide open. If there is a God, then now's the
Right.
time. Doesn't reveal himself. Okay, fine. Maybe next week, maybe next month.
Right.
I'm not I if you take the infinite knowledge out there in the universe, I
Yes.
probably have the equivalent of a grain of sand.
Yeah. I
And
get
so
that.
how arrogant would it be for me to think, either I knew or I didn't know 100% anything. And so
Right.
that's what makes it exciting. I think I can talk to Seth every day without having to die.
And I love that because so many people, and yes, I'm a medium, I can connect with
Mhm.
people, but I even, it's not like my grandma comes and stands and talks to me all the
Right.
time, but
Right.
I connect the same way. And I tell people the same thing. Whether you feel you have abilities or you don't, talk to them. Just,
Right.
if anything, and some people who are very skeptical say, well, it doesn't matter, they can't hear you. Maybe they can, maybe they can't. I can't prove that
Right.
to you. I can't
Right.
make you
Right.
believe that, but it'll make you feel better.
I
You
write in my
keep that
book. In
connection.
my book, I get into a chapter called "The Evolution of Self," where I really dive really heavy philosophically into some of these
Yes.
things. And I submit this proposition. Here's my situation. I said, okay, if you are a firm believer in the afterlife and you're a
Mhm.
firm believer in, God and all that stuff, that's
Right.
great. Then I would think that your intentions here are to be a good person because you're rewarded
Right.
by going to heaven, right?
Right.
So that should make you a good human, right? But let's say you don't believe in any of that, and
Mhm.
you really think that this is the only life you have, that when you die,
Right.
the lights out, the party's over,
That's
right?
it. Yep.
Well, then that argument, you ought to try to get the best out of your life that you can, because
Right.
it's the only one you have.
Right.
So on both positions, both belief structures shouldn't preclude you from being a good human. That's my
Right.
prime point.
Right.
Either one, you should be a good person.
100%.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's all I care about. Is I care more about people's behaviors than I do their beliefs. I mean,
Absolutely.
I've got friends of mine that are extremely religious. They're the nicest people. I've got friends of mine, they're not friends, but they're people that are very religious. I can't be in the same room with them.
Right. Right.
And I have atheist friends that are nice and atheist friends that are jerks. So
Yeah.
I don't really care what your belief structure is. I care.
Right.
I care more about your behavior and how you treat
Yes.
humans.
Yes.
You
I
know?
think we've and this is completely off topic, but
Yeah.
in society, we've kind of moved to this point where if we don't agree
Right.
on these same things and these same pinpoints, well, one of us is a jerk. We just
Right.
don't get along.
Right.
And I love, because I'm very open-minded. I will sit down, I will listen to anybody's ideas and have respectful conversations. We don't have
Right.
to agree, but I look at people's behaviors. I look at insight on how they process and how they
Right.
look at things, because that is like the puzzle pieces that make all of us up.
Yeah. And we just need more love and compassion
Yes.
and empathy and courage and strength, and
Yeah.
that's what we need.
Right.
That's how we right this ship. We don't write it
Absolutely.
by arguing with people about,
No.
I don't want to be technical, but like, transgender rights or about gun rights or abortion, just yelling and screaming and arguing
Yes.
and
No.
I'm right, you're wrong, you're an idiot, and
Right.
that's where we're at. It's a very
Yes.
vile, toxic environment for
It
humanity
is.
right now, and I don't like it.
No.
I just don't. And I believe me, I have plenty of reasons to be mad and angry right now.
Right. Right.
I could certainly have turned my energies into negative energies, but I think of it this way, Stephanie. So I come to the table with a
Right.
certain set of energy.
Yeah.
So let's say I have 100. I'm at 100 energies. Okay.
Yep.
And I'm with you. And let's say, in talking with you, I'm being negative. So I'm actually pulling your energy into mine.
Correct.
So I'm
Yeah.
depleting your energy. So by the time you walk away from my conversation, you've got less energy you had before we met.
Right.
Well, if we can turn that around and I can actually fill your bucket up, put more energy
Yes.
in you,
Yes.
I don't feel like I don't think it's a zero sum game. I don't think I'm losing energy. I'm just
Right.
transferring mine to you.
Yes.
And I can replenish it easily by reading a book or listen to a podcast, or I
Absolutely.
can look at my son and my wife, and I can
Right.
I can replenish that well pretty quickly. But we need to give more positive energy to
We do.
people. We do. We
Yeah.
really do, because
Right.
more of us are depressed and anxious and down than we've ever been
Oh,
before.
it
We
is.
need it.
And we don't connect. People don't get together. They don't connect
Right.
like they used to. And it's heartbreaking, because I truly worry, what are we leaving for the next generation? And we talk about, it's so easy to talk about change and things need to change, but unless we affect it in our small world and let that ripple out,
Right.
how do you reach the masses with that
Yeah.
positivity?
Well, I've always said that raising awareness is a dead horse.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. Do we need another label on a Snickers bar to know it's bad for you?
Right.
Of course not. But
No, and I'm still gonna eat it.
we're the heaviest industrial country in
Yeah.
the world. We're getting bigger. We
Yeah.
don't need more data. We don't need more information.
Right.
We need to bring attention to, not raise awareness. So what I mean by bring attention to is we need to lure people into our stories.
Yes.
We need to pull people in.
Yeah.
And then replenish that energy tank and give you some positive things that you can take away from our relationship, so you can walk away saying, hey, I met Jeff, I feel better. And that's all I can control, is that energy I can give to people.
Absolutely.
Whether you interpret that energy as good or bad, I can't control that, but
Right.
I can certainly control what I give.
Absolutely.
And that's where I think being in service is a key to mental health. I think being vulnerable, sharing your story, and then being of service to other people is, I think, the way that we right the ship in this country. Instead of being so selfish,
Yes.
we need to be selfless, in what
And
we do.
how do we end that stigma, though? Speaking of getting help, because
Yeah.
people don't like to be seen as vulnerable. We want to be strong, and I think people struggle with being vulnerable with others, being vulnerable with themselves. How do we end this stigma so that people are more willing to
Yeah.
seek out the help they need?
Well, first, having conversations like this. I mean, your
Yeah.
show is a great example to have a very, good people listening to you and I talk right now are probably saying, why doesn't everyone talk like this?
I hope so.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you and I, if we sat down, we have certain viewpoints on things that may differ, or
Right.
they may not. I don't know.
Right.
Well, how about we won't know until we talk, right?
Exactly.
That's the only way we're going to find out, and
Yeah.
do it in a discourse that's very, I don't know, enjoyable, I guess, is
Right.
what conversation
Right.
should be.
Absolutely.
But here's the problem, I think, is that we have so many ulterior motives. And most often when we meet somebody, we have an agenda like, oh, I want to sell my book on her show. So I'm going
Right.
to do this to impress her so I can sell my book. And it's like,
Right.
that's not a genuine conversation
No.
if you have an ulterior motive. So I think part of what I'm trying to do is be more intentional. And I don't really care to promote my projects on your show.
Right.
I think if somebody likes what I say, they'll go to Living Undeterred. They'll find out
Absolutely.
themselves. And that's bringing attention to
Yeah.
what I'm doing.
Right.
Getting people excited about, hey, I want to check this guy's podcast out. He sounds like he knows what he's talking about.
Yes.
Instead of yelling and screaming, or maybe trying to distract people from what's really happening in the world.
Right.
And I see a convergence of many things right now that have me worried. And I'm not a prophet or have a
Right.
prophecy in my mind, but there are some aligning of the stars per se
Mhm.
that have me concerned. And a lot of it's in the Gen Z generation.
Right.
When they represent a third of the world's population. So they're huge.
Yes. Yeah.
And if we don't find ways to give
Right.
them some hope and purpose and some inspiration, we're going to be putting out fires for a very long time.
Absolutely. And I can't tell you just how much I appreciate you using your experiences through your life to try to motivate the change, to try to start the conversation, and just for joining me. It's when I see, people like yourself come across, sometimes I struggle with, should I reach out? Are they going to, are you going to want to come on a metaphysical show
I love it.
and discuss
I
it?
could talk
I'm
about this
so
stuff
glad
all
you
day.
do. I love it. I'm so glad that you were receptive.
Yeah.
But I appreciate that, because this is kind of that different platform. I'm sorry.
No,
I seem to have got your cough.
right through the microphone. Yeah. But no, I appreciate that. And I think the fact that everybody watching this show, everyone listening, has something that's happened in their life that has been very traumatic, whether it was childhood trauma or something like, in my case, most of my trauma happened later in my life.
Right.
Nonetheless, it doesn't lessen the pain that's involved with that. But that pain is what makes us human. That pain is what,
Absolutely.
robots can't cry,
No.
computers can't feel emotion. I don't want to lose that. That's why I don't think pain's a bad thing.
Right.
I think the suffering is.
Yes.
That
100%.
that I think is bad. That's what I think we can mitigate. We can control our suffering, but there's not much you can do with pain. Pain's actually a
Right.
really good mechanism to warn you when something's wrong.
It is. I like that. And we have to pay attention. We have to pay attention to those flags, to those signals our body's sending us, and honor that.
Mm-hmm.
So really quick, before I let you go, I do want to let everybody know I have all of Jeff's links. If you're interested in finding and learning more about what he has to say, his book, please hop on to the chats, and I will also be posting those on my page later. And I know you travel, you speak. So
Mm-hmm.
if they're looking to have you come in and speak at a venue, do you speak at schools?
I speak anywhere. We're going back on tour this summer. Last year we did a 95-day tour around the United States in an RV. We're doing 3 mini tours this summer. So if anyone's
Wow.
interested to see if we're going to be in their area, they can reach out to us. My
Perfect.
email is just jeff@livingundeterred.org. Or they could go to our website and get all the information on that. But yeah, we are big advocates in improving the well-being of humans. That's kind of what we want to do with our projects.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for being
No,
an
thank you.
inspiration. Thank you for coming on today. It's been an honor. And I hope we'll stay in touch. I'd love to follow your projects and maybe have you back in a couple months and
I'd be honored. That'd be
reach
great.
out.
We have a lot of really neat things we have coming up. So
Yes. Well, thank you, Jeff. Thank you so much. And thank you for everybody for tuning in. We are going to let Jeff go, take our last quick station break, and I'll be back in just a moment. Bye, Jeff.
The Body Code is a revolutionary method of energetic healing developed by Dr. Bradley Nelson, which allows us to quickly and easily identify specific imbalances that seem to underline chronic ill health, acute and chronic pain, and discomfort, dysfunction, and stress. Ellie energetically connects with the subconscious of the client. Psychic medium Ellie Weisensell is a medical intuitive and energy healer and a certified body code practitioner. She identifies and clears energetic imbalances within the body and energy field. Contact Ellie at the website below, and Ellie can work remotely from a distance, by phone, online, video chat. There's no need to travel to an office. Remember, the Body Code is safe for humans and animals. Contact Ellie today.
Good morning again, everybody. Thank you for tuning in today. It's about 48 past the hour. You are catching about the last 5 minutes of the Chat with Charlie show here on WLTK-DB Let's Talk Radio. If you're just tuning in, you missed a great show. Lots of resources with Jeff Johnston. So I hope you will download wherever you download anything. You can find me on Apple, iPod. I'm all over. So hop on, download lots of great resources. If you yourself maybe are struggling with some self-medication, if maybe you're struggling with some mental health, or maybe somebody you know needs support, And that's why we're here. We want to make sure that you have the support that you need, or that you have resources to get to people you need. So thank you. Thank you for tuning in, because this was really a topic that is really close to my heart. So before we go, you guys know I always kind of tell you what's coming up on this show. Next week's guest is Dr. Gala Gorman. As you guys remember, she was scheduled a little bit earlier in last month, but we had to reschedule. So I'm very excited to have her on. And then the 27th, we're going to be welcoming back Kelly Wagner from The Edge magazine. So super excited to have those guests on. I hope you guys will tune in. Dr. Gala is going to be bringing us some resources about acupuncture, being your best you, right? So we're kind of sticking on this self-motivation, on the self-focus, and how we can be our best selves. So she will have a lot of fantastic information for you guys as well. Before we go, I did want to pull a couple cards, and I pulled 3. And I think it's really interesting. They all kind of came out as a group. And I think you guys are going to get why I find these so interested with today's topic. So the first card that I pulled is actually love. And if you look, you look at this card, it's kind of coming into spring. It's coming into, I take this as opening that door, right? Opening that door, not just to love ourselves, not just to love our neighbors, but love, being that support, being there for people, and seeing them and accepting them for who they are. We can't offer love with conditions, right? That's not how love works. Whether it's for ourselves, well, I'd love myself if I was thinner, or whether it's for somebody else, well, I would love them more if they weren't whatever. You cannot truly love with conditions. You can have boundaries and care about people, but love does not come with conditions. And so I think that's spirit coming in and reminding us, maybe you are struggling and helping somebody with mental health. You love them, right? That's not a condition that's going to break that love. So that true love is really coming in and honoring that person for who they are. The second card that comes in is miracles. And to me, this was really powerful because just of the topic today, right? And so many of us have been in difficult mental health situations. We've been in, as Jeff said, these times of suffering. But we're still here. We're living our life. We are trying to come out of maybe some suffering. But where are these miracles? We may not see every day how we affect somebody, how we help somebody, but these little things in life, right? These bright spots, these things that come in, maybe you don't define them as miracles, but you have to look for those bright spots. You have to understand, because you're here, you are creating these bright spots. You are creating these things for people, going through it. If I would not have went through my suffering that brought me to being here on this platform, would I have been able to help the people that I feel like I've been able to help? Would I have been able to reach out with these resources? We all have a reason. We all have a purpose. You may not call it a miracle, but I do. And the last card that I got is growth, right? How do we not have growth? We're here. We're going through these sucky situations. We're going through these great situations. We're evolving as an individual. We have to have this individual growth. We have to have this personal growth. The cards go very beautifully. Yes, I agree, Ellie. I was pretty wow, I can't believe those all came out together. You have to allow that growth. You grow through the suffering. You grow through the great moments. Take the little pieces along that can help you affect better, that can help you be better. Let the other baggage behind when you can. Allow yourself to grow. You don't have to stay in that box. You can let yourself out. Just saying. Well, everybody, I really appreciate you tuning in. I always enjoy the conversation with the guests, having you guys all chime in. And that's why we're all here. We're all here to offer you support. We're all here to offer you a resource. There's all kinds of links in today's comments. I also will be posting links again if you're interested in touching base with Jeff, seeing what kind of resources he has. I will post those with the replay links later today. So thank you all so much for tuning in. I will see you all next week on Chat with Charlie.
The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTK-DB.com.